just because a single character was blurred by sunlight. A black man in a suit was marked as a thief, and in less than 60 seconds, he was in handcuffs. No apology, no verification, just flashing lights and bias. That morning, Marcus Ellison, 56 years old, a seasoned judge for the state of Illinois, was on his way to a strategic meeting with the governor's office. He wore a deep navy suit, a subtle striped tie, and drove a sleek silver-gray Tesla X, gliding down the highway between Wisconsin and Illinois. At the Aurora 1 rest stop, a newly piloted smart charging station, he pulled in to check his battery. The station was fully AI operated. No staff, no counter, just cameras and sensors. And it was there that everything went wrong. The AI camera scanned Marcus's license plate, but a beam of angled sunlight made the O appear as a Q, a perfect match with a vehicle reported stolen out of Chicago just a week prior. An alert was instantly sent to the regional patrol unit. No one double-checked the data. No one reviewed the footage. They just looked at a screen, saw an expensive Tesla at an unstaffed stop, with a black man in a suit sitting quietly inside. Red and blue lights flared on. Squad cars raced in. No questions, no warning, just a faulty algorithm and an unchecked assumption. Marcus Ellison, a judge, was now a suspect, and he had no idea that a second camera was recording everything. Police boots struck the hot asphalt with force. Officer Colton Bryce, 38 years old, white, eyes icy behind dark-rimmed sunglasses, approached the Tesla, one hand hovering near the gun on his hip. Inside the car, Marcus Ellison had already lowered the window, both hands visible on the steering wheel. His gaze, calm, yet razor-sharp. "Good morning, officer. Is something wrong?" His voice was deep, courteous. Bryce gave him a slow once-over, from the crisp collar to the polished leather shoes, then curled his lip into a half-smirk. "This vehicle was just flagged in connection with a theft, plate matches, and you don't exactly look like someone stopping to charge." Marcus frowned. No panic, no protest. He calmly reached into the center console and retrieved the registration, along with a raised seal ID card. Judge Marcus A. Ellison, Provincial Court, Illinois. "You're welcome to check the system," Marcus said evenly. "I believe there's been a mistake." But Bryce didn't glance at the documents. His voice tightened instead. "You hiding something? Why's your car on a wanted list?" The space between them thickened. The summer insects fell silent. All that remained was steady breath and suspicion burning behind mirrored lenses. Marcus didn't flinch. Or maybe, "You're afraid checking would prove you were wrong." One line, not loud, but it echoed like a first collision between prejudice and truth. No questions, no permission. Bryce yanked the driver's side door open with force. The Tesla's frame jolted. Marcus remained seated, but leaned slightly. His voice now firmer, clipped. "I do not consent to a search. I'm asking you. Do not touch my vehicle without a warrant." Bryce didn't answer. He leaned in, reached into the glove compartment, and started rummaging. The registration, reading glasses, and a neatly prepared folder for the governor's policy meeting spilled across the seat in a disarray of flying paper. Marcus stepped out, calmly, but with unmistakable resolve, hands raised. "Officer, I am not resisting, but your actions are violating protocol." That was all it took. Bryce turned sharply, voice cold and rigid. "You're obstructing a law enforcement officer." And then, click. The cold metal of a handcuff locked around Marcus's left wrist. A second later, his right wrist was secured. In broad daylight, at a rest stop with dozens of people around. A nearby truck driver, casually live streaming on TikTok, looked up, his eyes wide. Yo, what the hell? They're cuffing that guy. Wait, nah, he didn't even do anything. The phone camera captured it all. A black man in a suit, handcuffed, yet radiating an eerie calm. He didn't flinch, didn't yell, just silence. But that silence wasn't surrender. It was the storm gathering strength, not with rage, but with truth. The patrol car turned into the back lot of the local precinct, tires crunching against loose gravel. Marcus Ellison sat still in the back seat, hands cuffed, the collar of his suit slightly rumpled, but his spine remained straight as a line of thread. When the door opened, he stepped out on his own. Not because he was used to this, but because he had heard hundreds of stories like this. From behind the judge's bench. Inside the holding room, the fluorescent lights buzzed, pale and sickly. The plastic chairs were cold to the touch. Marcus was held for nearly 3 hours. No phone call. He asked 3 times, calm, precise, respectful. I need to notify the governor's office that I'll be late. Here are my credentials. Swallowed by mechanical indifference. A young officer entered his name into the system, but never cross-checked the photo, never verified the title. His official ID, Judge Marcus A. Ellison, Illinois Circuit Court, sat right there on the table. No one looked closely. Or maybe they looked, but didn't believe. One officer walking past glanced him up and down, then whispered to a colleague, "He's laying it on thick." Nice suit, though. Marcus didn't react. No nod, no shake of the head. Just stillness, hands resting gently on his knees, like a statue carved from silence. But in his mind, things were beginning to align. With the instinct of someone who's presided over more than 200 cases of police misconduct, he understood. This was no longer a mistake. This was a system, choosing not to see itself as wrong. While Marcus remained in custody at the precinct, elsewhere, the truth began to stir. At the Aurora 1 Charging Station Operations Center, more than 20 miles away, a technician named Leo Tran, 27, Vietnamese American, was monitoring the AI error feedback dashboard on his screen. A TikTok livestream clip suddenly popped up in the team's internal Discord thread. A black man in a suit, handcuffed beside a Tesla. The hashtag, #bias in blue, had just begun to spread. Curious, Leo rewound the clip to the exact moment the license plate was scanned. From the AI camera's angle, the plate read 30Q87K. But when he watched the actual footage, it was clearly 387K. Not a Q, a purely mechanical glitch. Sunlight had hit the edge of the second O, casting just enough of a glare to trick the system. One brief flare of light, one distorted frame, one wrong decision. Leo kept digging. The vehicle reported stolen, a Chevrolet Impala. Not a Tesla, different color, different shape. But no one at the station had bothered to compare. Without hesitation, Leo compiled all the evidence and sent it to Fairsight, a nonprofit that had worked with Marcus on multiple justice reform projects. Within 15 minutes, an email marked with a bold red subject line blasted its way to attorneys, journalists, and the Illinois State Technical Oversight Council. And the question it raised wasn't, where did the AI go wrong? It was, why? Did no one bother to double-check? Later that afternoon, a 27-second TikTok clip showing Marcus Ellison in handcuffs, dressed in a sharp suit, his eyes calm, yet quietly wounded, hit 1 million views in under 12 hours. The caption was just one line. Cuffed a black man in a suit because AI misread a license plate. The hashtags exploded. Judge Ellison, not your threat. Bias in blue viewers couldn't look away from the frame. A man who didn't struggle, didn't scream, just looked down, as if he was too familiar with being doubted. The comments poured in. If they can cuff him, who among us is truly safe? It's not the AI that failed. It's the people hiding behind it. This is what happens when skin color becomes a system error. Lawyers, politicians, university professors, even Elon Musk reposted the clip, writing, "We're handing judgment to machines, but still letting prejudice drive." CNN, The Guardian, The Verge, all picked up the story. Analyses quickly surfaced. AI doesn't have bias, but humans do. And when humans refuse to double-check the machine, that bias becomes policy. Meanwhile, Marcus Ellison sat quietly in the precinct waiting room, unaware that he had just become the face of a national reckoning. And this time, he wasn't the one telling the story. He was at the heart of it. The interrogation room door stood ajar, a harsh white light bearing down on a cold metal table. Captain Delilah Moore, senior officer, salt and pepper hair pulled into a tight knot, eyes sharp as a scalpel, stepped inside, a thick case file in hand. She had been ordered to initiate an internal review after the viral clip set the internet ablaze. But what made her pause wasn't the file. It was the gaze of the man sitting across the table. Director, deep, and far too used to being doubted. After a long silence, it was Marcus who spoke first. "Do you know I've listened to over 200 young people describe what it feels like to be treated like a criminal, just because they looked unusual? I always believed I could help change that, until today, when I became the next story." Delilah didn't speak. Her hands, resting on the folder, softened just slightly. Marcus continued slowly. "I know that look they gave me. It wasn't investigative. It was certain. The kind of look that already has a verdict. As if I was miscast in a film they've seen 100 times." He paused, then said each word like a gavel striking. "I used to be the one who defined others. Today, I'm the one being defined." Delilah finally looked up, and this time, her gaze had changed. No longer guarded, but fully present. Sometimes, it takes someone who once stood at the highest bench, being dragged to the wrong side of the line, for the system to finally realize just how far it's tilted. Room 312, Illinois State Government Building. Packed wall to wall with legal advisors, tech experts, and department representatives. This special session had originally been scheduled to discuss AI applications in criminal justice. But now, every eye was fixed on a single oak door. 10 a.m. sharp. The door opened. Marcus Ellison stepped in, still wearing his deep navy suit, leather case in hand. His expression, not angry, just calm, coldly calm. The room fell silent. Not out of protocol, but out of respect. The governor of Illinois stood up to greet him personally, his voice low but deliberate. "Ladies and gentlemen, the man who was wrongfully detained by our system yesterday is the same man who helped us draft the very framework for police conduct reform 2 years ago. They arrested one of the architects of modern justice." The room seemed to freeze in place. Marcus approached the podium. No papers, no assistant. He spoke a single sentence, clear, slow, unmistakable. "Automated systems are allowed to make mistakes, but police are trained not to. And yet, they didn't even bother to check." No applause, no awkward laughs, only realization. Technology isn't nearly as dangerous as the humans who stop thinking when it's turned on. And when the one harmed is the very person who helped write the law, then the law must be rewritten. 3 days after the governor's meeting, a special hearing was convened at the Illinois State Department of Justice. Topic: Review of conduct and disciplinary action against Officer Colton Bryce. Presiding over the hearing, Judge Marcus A. Ellison. Some members of the oversight panel recommended he recuse himself to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest. But after legal counsel confirmed there were no personal ties or ethical violations, Marcus nodded once and accepted the role. If we can't deliver justice in a case this simple, one that everyone saw with their own eyes, then how can the public trust us in places where cameras aren't allowed? The room was silent. Only the low hum of the AC and the soft clicking of pens filled the air. Officer Bryce walked in. The arrogance was gone. His face stiff, his hands clenched, as if holding on to the last scrap of dignity. In front of him stood a large screen displaying the 27-second TikTok clip. The AI misread data, the faulty GPS logs, the testimony from the technician, and the live stream witness from the truck driver. No defense held up. Not one "I followed protocol" stood firm against the cold precision of every frame. And at the center of the room, Marcus sat upright, gaze steady. But the words he was about to speak would hit harder than any sentence he'd ever handed down. After 3 hours of testimonies, counter-arguments, and frame-by-frame video playback, the hearing reached its final conclusion. Officer Colton Bryce was suspended immediately without pay. Every case he had been involved in over the past 3 years, from arrests and pursuits to searches, was ordered into review. But the harshest sentence wasn't written in the disciplinary report. It came in the final words, delivered into a room holding its breath. Marcus stood. He didn't look at Bryce. He looked beyond him, toward the row of justice officials seated in the back. His voice was steady, clear, not loud, but every word struck at the foundation of the system. We cannot blame the machine, when it was human beings who chose to ignore the truth. The algorithm may misread, but it's the prejudice in a human gaze that truly does the damage, and no line of code can teach conscience. The room was dead silent. No scribbling pens, no water sipped. Even those who once believed this was just a minor error no longer smirked behind their silence. Marcus ended with one final line. This isn't about punishing one man. It's about forcing the entire system to take a long, hard look at itself. And in that exact moment, justice no longer lived on paper. It was rewritten. Through an unflinching gaze, through collective silence, through a truth that could no longer be undone. 3 days after the hearing, the governor of Illinois held an emergency press conference. Behind the podium, 3 bold words stood tall: from incident to reform. Standing beside him was Judge Marcus Ellison, still calm, still without a single word of blame. But his presence alone was a living declaration of quiet, unwavering justice. The governor announced 3 statewide policies, effective immediately. 1. All law enforcement officers making an arrest must verify identity using at least 3 independent systems, including administrative records, real-time imagery, and cross-checks. All AI-powered surveillance and traffic cameras must include a mandatory human override function. No automated alert may be treated as conclusive without human verification. 3. A mandatory statewide training program on technological bias, human rights, and critical thinking will be implemented across every police academy, for both new recruits and veteran officers. No one clapped, no one cheered, but the room understood. 1 video, 1 day, 1 man, and an entire system was forced to change, not because Marcus Ellison is a judge, but because he was treated as if he weren't human. And from that moment forward, the new laws didn't begin on paper. They began with the image of a calm face in handcuffs. On the stage of the Illinois State Police Academy, The state flag fluttered gently in the breeze, bathed in the golden sunlight of early fall. Below, 63 cadets, the first graduating class under the new reform standards, stood in perfect formation, new uniforms, badges gleaming over their hearts. Marcus Ellison stepped up to the podium. No introduction was needed. Everyone in that academy knew who he was. Not just a judge, but the reason they were here, carrying a new kind of responsibility. His voice rang out, warm yet sharp as a scalpel. You weren't just trained to keep order. You were trained to see the human being, in the very moment when bias tries to blind you. It's not just about justice. It's about how you look at a stranger. That choice isn't made by AI. It's made by you. The courtyard held its breath. Then, from the third row, a young cadet stepped forward, white, blue-eyed, a close-cropped haircut. His voice trembled. I used to think machines would be more fair than people. But now I understand. Fairness can't be outsourced. It has to start from the heart of the one who wears the badge. Marcus gave a slight nod. No further words were needed, because today he no longer had to prove anything. He had planted a seed that no system could unearth, a new generation, taught to fear not chaos, but indifference. The ceremony ended as the sunset stretched across the academy lawn, casting a faint golden glow on the shoulders of Marcus Ellison's suit. He descended the stone steps, alone, no entourage, no reporters trailing behind. But as he passed each cadet, the looks he received no longer held suspicion, but respect. No one clapped, no slogans were shouted, only silence, the kind that speaks volumes from those who had just learned their greatest lesson. That following procedure doesn't always mean following principle. The evening breeze rustled through the flag line as rows of uniforms stood tall, watching his figure disappear into the amber light. On the way back, no one mentioned the wrongful arrest. No one called him a victim, because Marcus Ellison was never truly the one who had been restrained. That day, he was the one who unlocked the cuffs. Not just the ones made of steel, but the invisible ones forged by bias within the very system meant to uphold justice. Justice doesn't live in a chip, he had once said. It lives in how we choose to see each other, and whether we still believe in the truth, even when the system says otherwise. That story doesn't need an ending, because it's still being written. Every time someone dares to pause and truly look